Many of you know me as CALUNGCAGIN, but my name is JESS CALUNGCAGIN. And it's been an honor to carry that name after my father. And the only way to honor him back would be to name my own firstborn, JESS CALUNGCAGIN. First, I'd like to say thank you to everyone who's here and may not be here for all your prayers. People have made comments about how strong my family is, but it's thanks to all of you and all of your prayers. I'd also like to thank my father's colleagues at work who stood by him all the way to the very end. They took care of him at work, and even when he was in the hospital, they stood by him all the way. I'd also like to thank the medical staff there at New York Presbyterian who really took care of my dad, and they really showed their love for him. Truly loved him. And I guess spearheading that group would be Dr. Brian Scully, who was part of that team and really kept a close eye on my dad throughout the whole encounter. So first I'd like to begin with a quote which my father used at his own father's memorial mass. It's a quote from Saint Josemaria, founder of Opus Dei. Quote, "The only goal is to arrive at the glory of heaven. And if we did not reach heaven, the whole thing would be useless." This was a good quote because it will help us understand my father's approach to life and all that it encompasses. So let's start at the beginning. He was born a son in 1953 to Lucio CALUNGCAGIN and Catalina CALUNGCAGIN. As a son, he truly honored his father and his mother. He was obedient and respectful. Even as their roles changed and they reached an elderly state, he continued to be a loyal son, never talking above them, but always remaining at their service. As a brother, he was a close friend and a great confidant amongst his siblings. Being the middle of 7, he was also a very good mediator. I've been told he was their calm, kind, and gentle voice of reason. He lived his family life with humility, always concerning himself with their needs before his own. As a husband, he was my mom's best friend, as he was her best friend. Throughout their marriage, they always maintained the courtship of their youth, as quoted from my parents' wedding invitation in June 1980, line from Saint Josemaria. "I constantly tell those who have been called by God to form a home to love one another always, to love each other with the love of their youth." Someone said the other day, they would see my parents after so many years of marriage still holding hands, like a young couple. I've heard how their marriage was admired by many, and some aspire to love each other in marriage the way they have. Within our family, his wife, my mom, was his #1 priority. He did his children a great service by showing us his love for our mother. He'd always make her laugh with their inside jokes and with his straight-faced one-liners. As a father, he was our provider and our protector, never wavering, always constant, always present. He showed his sons how to be men of virtue, respecting others, honoring commitments, working hard, staying humble, taking care of others, and always remembering to give any personal glory back to God. Within my little brother, he fostered a love for music, taught him how to play guitar. Late at night, they'd be jamming away to James Taylor, Eric Clapton. I don't know if I missed anyone there. They would go on for hours. For me, he fostered love of sports, basketball, boxing, tennis, taking me to Mike Tyson pay-per-views, whipping me around the court. My dad was never stagnant. He was always moving, going to work, working on the house, landscaping. Shirley had a green thumb, bringing back any wilting plant back to its healthy state. He also grilled a mean steak. That common caricature of the lazy dad on the couch, that was never him. You'd always hear him downstairs loudly clapping, cheering for the Yankees or the Giants. But if anyone needed him at that moment, sports was the last thing on his mind. He showed his daughters, by loving our mother, the qualities of a man which they should seek to marry, should that be their calling. He raised strong daughters, showing them how to command respect and carry themselves with dignity. As an older brother, that made my life a lot easier. He taught us all this, sometimes with words, but always through action. The women in the family were his treasures. He would never let my mom or my sisters do the driving, always ensuring them to their destination, even if he was tired or sleepy. Also maybe because he didn't trust their driving. Rain or shine, he would always pull the car up for them, not letting them walk. During the week, he would wake up an extra hour before work, earlier than he should, only to see my sister out the door and wish her a nice day. He was a proud grandfather of 8, and God willing, still counting. True expert at putting the children to sleep effortlessly, always holding, hugging, and squeezing them. Where he left off with us, his children, he picked up and continued on with his grandchildren. As an uncle to many, his presence was like that of their own father. He would play with them, coach their teams, teach them, drive them around. He was there to clean up scraped knees, rock them to sleep. To his nieces and nephews, he stood as a strong role model in their lives. As a friend, relative, and man in the world, he lived with integrity. The man you may have seen at the workplace was the same man we saw at home. The man you saw at friendly gatherings was the same man you saw at Sunday Mass. He lived the unity of life, never having a dichotomy of personality, truly consistent in all things in his life. He was a charitable man, volunteering at various functions, always helping the community around him. Truly a good Samaritan. One night, a boy ran up to our door, bloody and beaten. This boy had escaped from his own father's home, asking for help. My dad took him in, changed him out of his bloody shirt, gave him one of his own. I fed the boy and made phone calls and ensured him back to safety. Another occasion, my mom and dad were driving and witnessed a car crash. Without second thought, my dad ran over to the car, pulled the door open, and rescued the woman and her child. He aided them as they were bloodied and injured until medical help arrived. At a more personal level, he truly connected with people, speaking with them as if they were the only person in the room, taking genuine interest in their interests. At gatherings, if there was anyone remotely feeling displaced, lonely, or off to the side, there you would find my dad engaging them, making them feel welcome and at home. I recall at a family gathering where a particular relative was going through a rough patch, and perhaps even intentionally isolating themselves from everyone. It was not before long you would see my dad in the corner with them, engaging in a gentle conversation, perhaps comforting them, seeing them eye to eye and empathizing with them, letting them know that they were not alone. Some of you relatives might be thinking, who was it? But over the years, it may very well have been many of us. My father flew under the radar throughout his life. No ego, no bravado, no grand entrances, no grand exits, never calling attention to himself. But he was ever present in the middle of the world, having yet another meaningful encounter with someone. We could ask ourselves, what drives a man to live life with such virtue? If I may, I'd like to share an experience I had with my father, which helped me understand how my father lived his life. I was in my early 20s working a temporary office job with my dad in the kitchen and me sitting in the dining room. I asked my dad, I said, how do you do it? Because here I am staring at a computer screen from 9 to 5 and I feel miserable. It's not fun. I don't enjoy it. I think I'm gonna go crazy. And if I had to do this for the rest of my life, I don't know what I'd do. And he said to me, that's how you earn heaven, with love. No matter what you do, whether you enjoy it or not, you do it with love. With the big things like work or the little things in everyday life, you do it with love. If it happens to be something you like, you do it with love. If it's trying and difficult, you do it with love. You can hold a high position in society. You can cure many diseases. You can become one of the richest people in the world. You can even enjoy what you do. But if you don't do it with love, you can't earn heaven. My father was a man of faith. He never referred to himself as a man of God, but rather a child of God. Yes, a child, a little child, like the kind that runs to his parents for everything. At work, during his lunch hour, before grabbing his favorite slice of pizza, you would find him running down from number 2 World Financial Center over to Daily Mass down the street, going to see Christ in the Eucharist, praying for things, asking for things, like a child would. On his train ride commute, you'd find him reading the gospel, getting to know his faith. Though it may appear that he was sleeping on the train, he'd be engaged in mental prayer, meditating on his faith. In the car, before turning on the news or listening to music, you'd pray the rosary, running to the Virgin Mary, his mother, seeking comfort and solace. Every week, every Tuesday night, he would attend the sacrament of reconciliation, asking for forgiveness and trying again for another better week. All these daily practices help him prepare him for his greatest feat, his encounter with the disease HLH, T-cell lymphoma, and the daily grind in the ICU for almost 2 years. Tired, confused, and frustrated, my father took his stance, doing his very best to take on what was to come. The disease took a heavy toll on my father's body, breaking him down severely. The fevers, the pain, the discomfort I couldn't even imagine. But attached to every pinprick of the needle, attached to every tube that was inserted, every grueling headache, every body sore, there was a name attached to it. A name, a person he was offering up the pain for as prayer for that person. Every new pain, there was a new name. Always offer up his pain for everyone. Maybe for me, maybe for you. But here he was, uniting his suffering with Christ's pain on the cross. Any brief moment he was aware of, he recited the Hail Mary to himself or aloud, again, always running to the Virgin Mary, his mother, for comfort. Even from the hospital bed, he was asking how others were doing, asking my sister when her friend was getting married, asking how my kids were doing, how others were doing, continuing his life in the ICU with love. Moreover, he brought so many people closer to God. I've been told by his good friend Vincent that there are hundreds of people praying for him. People who haven't spoken to God in years were suddenly reaching out to God on his behalf. Vincent would go on to add that the word had been spread and there were hundreds of people on 6 of the 7 continents praying for my dad. Midway through his stay, in one of my mom's last conversations with him, she said, "Jess, I wish I could switch places with you." And my dad replied, "Why?" She said, "Because you've been through so much." And he stopped her there and said, "No, God has his plan for you. This is God's plan for me. Everything will work out the way it's supposed to, and everyone will benefit from this." My dad took his last breath on Saturday, a day dedicated to the Virgin Mother, September 26, 2015 at 10:43 p.m. in the ICU at New York Presbyterian Hospital. So as we enter this holy sacrifice of the Mass, let us not only remember my father JESS, Gascon, CALUNGCAGIN, but let us reflect and meditate on how we too can live our lives with more love and how we can give glory to God by uniting ourselves to the cross.